History told a simple story about Teotihuacan, a mighty city, a lost people, a mystery that faded into dust. But what if that story was never true? What if the people behind one of the largest cities on Earth were not who we thought they were? What if the murals, the pyramids, and the rituals were hiding a population history far more complex than textbooks ever admitted? Why does the city show so many foreign styles yet leave so few clear records? Why do entire neighborhoods look like they belong to different cultures? Who was born there and who arrived from far away? Was Teotihuacan a single civilization or a controlled experiment in ancient multicultural power? And why did it take modern DNA science to uncover what stone monuments never said out loud? For over a century, archaeologists tried to define the people of Teotihuacan by their buildings, their art, and their trade goods. The city rose around 100 BCE in the basin of Mexico and grew into a metropolis of more than 100,000 people. Its pyramids dominated the skyline. Its streets followed a strict grid. Its influence reached hundreds of kilometers, yet the identity of its inhabitants remained strangely unclear. There were no readable royal tombs like the Maya, no long dynastic inscriptions, no clear portraits of kings. Power was visible everywhere, but leadership was almost invisible. Early scholars assumed Teotihuacan was the capital of a single dominant ethnic group from central Mexico. That seemed logical. Large cities usually grow from local roots, but the material evidence kept resisting that idea. Entire districts contained pottery styles from Oaxaca. Murals showed Maya-style clothing and symbols. Burial practices varied sharply from one neighborhood to another. Some homes followed architectural traditions not native to the valley at all. These were not just visiting traders. These were communities that lived and died there. Still, material culture can travel without people. Trade can imitate style. Influence can be copied. So the debate lingered. Were these foreign-looking neighborhoods populated by migrants, or were they simply adopting outside aesthetics? Archaeology alone could not give a definitive answer. The bones were there, the teeth were there, but until recently, the science to read their deeper biological history did not exist. That changed when ancient DNA analysis finally reached the remains of individuals buried in and around Teotihuacan. Extracting genetic material from bones over 1,500 years old is difficult, especially in warmer climates where DNA breaks down. But new techniques allowed researchers to recover enough fragments to begin mapping ancestry. What they found did not confirm a simple, unified population. It revealed a city built from multiple genetic lineages. Some individuals carried genetic signatures most closely related to people from the Oaxaca region to the south. Others showed links toward the Gulf Coast. Some appeared consistent with long-term populations of central Mexico. These were not isolated cases. They were spread across different social contexts, suggesting that migration into the city was not rare or temporary. It was structural. Teotihuacan was not just influenced by other regions, it was inhabited by them. This reframes the city's famous apartment compounds. For decades, archaeologists noted that many residential complexes seemed internally organized, but externally uniform, as if the state enforced a standard housing model. Inside those compounds, however, cultural diversity flourished. Food remains differed, ritual objects varied, artistic motifs shifted. DNA now supports the idea that these compounds often housed extended kin groups with shared geographic origins. They were not random urban neighbors. They were transplanted communities living under a centralized system. That raises a harder question. Was this diversity voluntary or managed? Teotihuacan's rulers, whoever they were, designed a city with strict spatial order. The Avenue of the Dead aligned with celestial events. Major temples were carefully positioned. Residential zones were planned rather than organically grown. This was not a loose collection of migrants forming a city. It was a city that absorbed migrants into a controlled framework. Isotopic studies of teeth had already suggested that many residents were born outside the valley and moved there as children. DNA confirms this was not a minor trend. Teotihuacan appears to have drawn people from multiple regions and integrated them into their economic and ritual systems. But integration did not erase identity. Neighborhoods retained distinct traditions for generations. The state tolerated difference, but within boundaries. Cultural diversity existed, yet political authority remained centralized. Burials offer another layer. Some individuals with non-local ancestry were interred with high-status goods. Others were sacrificed in state rituals. The same system that offered opportunity also enforced obedience. DNA doesn't tell us rank directly, but when combined with burial context, it shows that migrants and their descendants could rise within the city's hierarchy. At the same time, large-scale sacrificial deposits, especially near major pyramids, contain individuals from varied backgrounds. Power unified people in life and in death, sometimes violently. The genetic evidence also challenges older ideas that Teotihuacan was ethnically homogeneous and later influenced distant regions like the Maya lowlands. Instead, interaction may have been more reciprocal. Maya-style artifacts in the city might reflect resident Maya communities, not just diplomatic contact. Murals showing foreign attire may depict real inhabitants, not symbolic references. The city begins to look less like an isolated superpower and more like a political engine fueled by human movement. Why would so many people relocate there? Economic gravity is one answer. Teotihuacan controlled obsidian sources critical for tools and weapons. Its markets were vast. Its craft industries were specialized and organized. But economic attraction alone does not explain the scale. There are signs of state coordination, standardized housing, rationed goods, and labor organization tied to construction projects. Migration may have been encouraged, structured, or even compelled under certain conditions. The city offered stability and resources, but also demanded participation. Ancient DNA reveals another subtle pattern. Despite the diversity, there is evidence of intermarriage over generations. Genetic mixing increased through time, suggesting that while neighborhoods preserved identity, social boundaries were not absolute. The state may have benefited from this gradual blending. Too much separation risks fragmentation. Too much uniformity erases useful networks. Teotihuacan seems to have balanced both, maintaining distinct communities while slowly weaving them into a shared population. This balance may explain the city's durability. For centuries, Teotihuacan remained stable without the overt kingly propaganda seen elsewhere. Power operated through institutions, planning, and ritual spectacle rather than named rulers. A diverse population under a unifying system can be resilient until the system weakens. By the 6th century CE, signs of internal strain appear. Elite compounds burn, monuments are defaced, construction slows. DNA doesn't tell us who rebelled or why, but it shows that the population was never a single block. When authority faltered, long-managed differences may have resurfaced as fractures. Even after the city declined, the people did not vanish. Genetic lineages linked to Teotihuacan appear in later Central Mexican populations. Cultural practices spread across Mesoamerica. Migration that built the city also ensured its legacy dispersed widely. Teotihuacan was not a genetic dead end. It was a mixing center whose human impact outlived its political structure. This forces a shift in how we define ancient cities. We often imagine them as expressions of one culture at its peak. Teotihuacan suggests something more complex, a state that built power by concentrating diversity, organizing it, and channeling it into monumental production and far-reaching influence. The pyramids were not just symbols of belief, they were anchors for a population drawn from many homelands. There's also a caution in this discovery. For decades, scholars searched for a singular Teotihuacan identity, assuming that behind the architecture must stand one dominant ethnic group. DNA shows that assumption was too narrow. Identity in the city was layered: local, migrant, communal, civic.
The state did not erase origins, it managed them. That management required surveillance, redistribution, and ritual control. Harmony was not automatic, it was engineered. The murals depicting masked figures and standardized costumes now look different. Were these religious images or visual tools promoting a shared civic identity over diverse roots? The city's grid plan also gains new meaning. Order in urban space may have helped maintain order among buried populations. When thousands of people from different regions live side by side, predictability becomes a form of control. Ancient DNA doesn't give us personal stories, but it exposes population patterns invisible to architecture alone. It confirms that Teotihuacan's greatness was not built by a single people expanding outward. It was built by many groups converging inward. That convergence was neither chaotic nor purely voluntary.
It operated inside a powerful system that offered opportunity, demanded labor, and maintained authority through ritual and planning. The mystery of who the Teotihuacan people were is not solved by naming one ethnicity. It is solved by recognizing that the city's strength came from structured diversity. That reality was hidden not because evidence was absent, but because the tools to read it were missing. Stone can show style, bones can show diet, but DNA reveals origin, movement, and connection across generations. What emerges is a picture of an ancient metropolis that feels unexpectedly modern in one sense. A dense, multi-ethnic population held together by infrastructure, ideology, and centralized coordination. Yet, unlike modern cities, this system left no written constitution, no named founders, no recorded speeches. Its structure is visible only through ruins, and now through fragments of genetic code. Teotihuacan was not a cultural monolith, it was a managed mosaic. Its people came from multiple regions, carried their traditions with them, and became part of a larger political machine. That machine built pyramids, controlled trade routes, and projected influence across Mesoamerica. When it weakened, the mosaic did not disappear. It dispersed, carrying pieces of the city's legacy far beyond its abandoned avenues. The stones always showed grandeur. The murals always showed diversity. But only now can we say with confidence that the people themselves embodied that diversity at a biological level. The city's silence about its rulers once seemed like a missing chapter. DNA suggests the deeper story was never about one ruling lineage. It was about how a state organized many lineages into a single, disciplined urban force. The mystery was never just who built Teotihuacan, it was how so many different people became Teotihuacan, and how a system powerful enough to unite them could still collapse. Ancient DNA does not romanticize that story, it strips it down to movement, mixture, and control. Beneath the pyramids was not a single forgotten tribe, but a convergence of worlds, held together for centuries by a design as deliberate as the city's grid itself.